And good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this is Venus Day, Venus Hour here where I'm at. While I usually do a Venus Wisdom on a Venus Day, right now Venus is invisible and retrograde in Leo. And that calls for the wisdom of Ereshkigal. So, upon honoring Ereshkigal, who is Ereshkigal, first of all? Basically, Inanna and Ereshkigal were sisters. And Inanna was in above the underworld. Okay, she was in the world. She was a goddess of war and of love. And very intricate, a lot more intricate than, she's been made of in modern astrology. As I was looking into information about Inanna, and her sister Ereshkigal was basically the queen of the underworld. And she was uninvited into the party. And that part of uninvited into the party kind of reminds us of Aries, but unlike Aries, that Aries instigated the war, okay, she instigated the Troja War and sent discord amongst people, Ereshkigal was staying in the underworld. And she sent for Inanna to come to her, okay? So there is something you already need to understand here. If we talk about Aries in Aries, where she's of a Venus-Mars nature, but she is instigating action, at least in Aries. This is what we know her for. She's instigating discord and causing a war, basically gaslighting the gaslighters, so to speak. And now they're trying each other. Ereshkigal, she brings things to her. She doesn't go out there. She doesn't go out or penetrate, but she actually draws in the nature of Venus, and she draws in her sister Inanna. Now, Ereshkigal, the reason she was not invited to kind of dance with the gods or something is basically she did not have the right etiquette. She was not the woman that you would take to a party or to an event or to a social event, because she didn't have the right etiquette. She wouldn't, if you think about songs, there's the song The Lady is a Tramp. Okay, there are a couple of versions of it, and The Lady is a Tramp basically was about, she's been called a tramp, and then there's this scene where she doesn't say, she doesn't pretend to like you if she doesn't like you. She doesn't go with all the women to pick up the dishes after the meal. And so because of all these things where she's being herself and she doesn't have the social etiquette, she doesn't conform to the social etiquette, she won't have all those masks, that she's considered a tramp, a whore, and basically is cast away, and she could only rule in the underworld. And so in that world where we shed off, or basically what is the underworld is when we die, we shed off our masks. And so because of her role as Ereshkigal, she's also the role of accompanying people to the after death. Okay. So this is the myth for Ereshkigal, and Venus in the face, where she's both invisible and retrograde, is Ereshkigal. She is now as the ruler of the underworld. But there is also when she appears as an evening star. So even when she's visible as an evening star, this is what I learned from Krasi, if I remember correctly. So we want to go to Krasi Atasio's teachings. And when she rises even as an evening star, she is Ereshkigal. To understand when Venus is Inanna and when Venus is Ereshkigal helps us to work with Venus. Because if you're trying to do Inanna when it is Ereshkigal, you'll get very gloomy results, very weird results. But if you, for example, if you get married when Venus is Ereshkigal, okay? You get married when Venus is Ereshkigal. You expect your partner to be proud of you, to take you to his parents, to this, and he wants to either hide you or tries to exploit you or tries to get away from you or whatnot. And you're like, what is going on? Okay? Or your wife. Or your wife, she doesn't have these manners. Like you take her to your family and she's like, she says what she thinks. Oh my God. Now, even if you are the kind of person that likes that, then even then you want to make sure you are starting a relationship when Venus is in Inanna, because if you're not marrying in the underworld, no matter how much you like to explore the depth and whatnot, if you're not marrying in the underworld, you're married above, you're married on earth, then you want Inanna, okay? But we also need to understand that Inanna and Ereshkigal are sisters. And the story itself is basically about Inanna coming to the underworld. She was sent for, she came to the underworld. And on her path, she had to remove an item that made her glorious. So an item of clothing, accessory, something that made her glorious. And then as she meets Inanna, she meets her naked. And unfortunately, Inanna Ereshkigal, as she meets Ereshkigal, and unfortunately, Ereshkigal tortures her. Ereshkigal doesn't treat her nicely, okay? Until she is appeased and lets Inanna go. So this is, as you can see, the story is a story between two women. There is no man here involved. If ever the man tried to appease Ereshkigal, kind of like, wait, don't finish her off. Hey, wait. There are things that she didn't see. She came all the way here. She took off all these items of clothing that she came to meet you. Don't put her to more torture. And so it's basically a story of tremendous hatred between two women. Okay? It's not a story about men. And so when Venus is in these phases, well, it's not good for anything Venusian. It is the time of the year where the Madonna, or the woman that you would take home, or the woman that is being taken home, or the elegant woman, the woman that is high society, or that is accepted by society and included by society and even leads in society, meets the woman that is marginalized, that is outcast from society. And sometimes it's difficult to identify who is who, okay? Because we are living above earth, okay? And so this woman and this, when these two types of women meet, it's kind of like the Madonna and the whore meet each other. And basically, it is a time where we are called, both whatever women or men or whatnot, to rethink our mind. Because what kind of a human being are you if you mistreat someone because they don't have the social etiquette? Okay, what kind of a human being are you if you go, let's say you talk about women things, so feminism, okay? What kind of a feminist are you if the oppressed woman is making you gold, okay? Or what kind of a leader, a princess are you if there are women who are enslaved in your kingdom? And right now, this is happening both when Venus is trine in Aries. And so there is the Ereshkigal, in this point, Ereshkigal and Aries is the two phases of the archetypal marginalized woman, the outcast woman, that are connecting together. And Aries throws in chaos, and the Ereshkigal, she is ready to put people through shit. Okay, this is why she's also associated with revenge or vengeance. When we need to remember both the drive, that's kind of like, oh, I'm going to show you, now you come down here, I'm going to show you what it's like here. And then there also the appeasing that is actually facilitated by men or masculine figures. Okay, they're like, hey, stop, you want to get her to change, you want to get her to grow, okay, to get Inanna to change, to grow. Okay, if you kill her, we're just gonna have another Inanna, you're just gonna have to do it all over again. You want to explain to her what is missing, what is going wrong, what is the experience of the underworld. We don't want her to die. Okay? And so there is the meeting of those who are included in society and those who are excluded in society. And you must understand, because your chart contains both Aries and Venus as Ereshkigal and whatnot, there may be, according to your natal chart, depending on the phase of Venus, is she a morning star, is she an evening star, is she retrograde, is she hidden in the light of the sun, is she even visible? And that can tell you what is the phase, what are you most related with, and also your life, like and sometimes it's difficult to recognize who is who. Maybe your Venus is very dignified, like in Taurus or in Libra, but retrograde or invisible. So it's kind of like it's a dignified, it's an Inanna Venus, but there's an Ereshkigal there. Okay, it's very difficult to tell which is which, but sometimes it's very easy to tell which is which. Okay. And so as I began, before Venus even went retrograde, my advice to people was try to understand whether you're a man, a woman, man and woman, genderless. Try to understand, think about that which is a woman. Okay? What do I deem disrespectful, dishonoring, not feminine, not elegant enough? What do I deem that? Because you're going to be revising. And I just watched actually a Marilyn Monroe. There were shorts with Marilyn Monroe. And the figure that Marilyn Monroe played was a woman that was very beautiful and coquettish, but only seen as a woman who wants to get money. It's like her heart was broken once, and then she said, okay, I want to get money. And then she has various movies where she plays the same character of a woman that is a gold digger. Okay? And one of the scenes that I saw, she's explaining her friend. And her friend is like telling her, you know, some people don't look at money. And Marilyn tells her, listen, I want what's good for you. I don't want you to do walking around like this. How can you be happy if you constantly worry about your financial life? Okay? And now you have to remember that the salaries that women were making in their own jobs, they were not so high. So she was like, I'm looking for a rich man. Or another scene, she comes with the man to his father. And she said, you can see, we need the consent of your father. And the father says, you want me to believe you're not dating my son just for his money? It's like, she is so beautiful, and his son is an elegant man, but you know, look like average looking. And she said, of course not. I am dating your son for your money. And her man is like, oh, she's like, no, but that is what we need, his consent. And she said, and then she says, oh, beautiful women, you know, the famous sentence, beautiful women are, like, a man will not marry you because you are beautiful, but doesn't it help? Okay, so rich man is like beautiful woman. So this scene was very much reminding me of this story of Inanna meets Ereshkigal. Okay, because Inanna is like, I'm respectable, I'm not thinking about money, I'm not this. And then the woman that is considered, and you can understand, Marilyn Monroe, she didn't seem like outcast, right? Okay? But she was like the not so dignified woman. She looks very beautiful, but she's trying to abuse men, she's trying to this, she's trying to that. And these two women meet at this juncture. And when you get to see why is she thinking the way she's thinking, she's like, okay, I'm just saying, I'm just not making pretense that other people make, or I'm just not caught up in a social etiquette of what is dignified and what is respectful and what is this and what is that. And I go for what I want. And it has reason, and what I want is not bad. I want to be happy, so I need to be wealthy. I have these looks, I perfect my looks, and so on. So this is another story of kind of like two women that have different views on what is a respectable woman, what should a woman want, values. Okay, Venus is also money, aesthetics as well. And at this point, in the better octave of it, these women are learning to remove prejudice about each other. And I was thinking about the previous episode that I did in this theme of Ereshkigal. I think I did it on a Saturday. And I was like, why was I called to talk about a love triangle? I'm like, why was I called? Because it's not something that is from my life, as far as I know. As far as I know, you know. But why was I called to talk about this? And indeed, somebody commented to me, thank you so much for this video. And I'm like, okay, it spoke to someone. But then I thought, oh, okay, when do we have love triangle on a general level? Because I have my personal planets very much close aspecting outer planets. So I knew it is something general. It's not something necessarily for me or right now for me. And I realized that in the past, I have been like 8 years ago, because they tried to put me in human trafficking in academia. And I said, no, I came here to work, not to sex work. And my view around like sex and money was, and still is, like I need to make my own money with ease. So I have my own money and the other person has their own money, and then we have connection. And so if a person is more powerful than me, then it can only work if we reach to the point that we are in the same power position. Okay? Only then I can even look at him differently, because otherwise I feel disempowered, I feel threatened, I don't feel erotically safe open, you know? Like, the water doesn't come out, sozusagen. And I realized that this is something very true about me. But it was also important for me to understand like other women. And I was looking at, there was the discourse around delegalization of sex work, but to blame like the client in Israel. And I began to speak with sex workers. So I saw many types, many people, many reasons, many things around this. And then now, 8 years after that, I'm thinking, oh, of course I was called to talk about the love triangle, because with women who are sex workers, they always have this notion that they believe that the women who want to, let's say, abolish sex work, that they are doing this because they are religious, because they don't want their husbands cheating on them. And I was like, oh, the prostitute is basically the third woman in the love triangle. And my wisdom was about non-monogamy and monogamy. And in non-monogamy, when you have a third party or another party, we call it metamor. The metamor is an asset. Okay, the other woman is not someone who saves your marriage. Okay, the other woman is someone, and this is particularly women here because it's in Ereshkigal. It can work for men too, probably. And so she's someone who saves your marriage because she sees things from another point of view, external. Okay? And now if you take a look at another type of woman who is the outcast, is or the Ereshkigal in the story, is the sex worker or the prostitute. And so the woman who is the sex worker or the prostitute, she knows things that the woman who is the lady doesn't know at all. And when these two women meet, okay, now they have a very powerful encounter. Okay, very powerful encounter. That in the case it is, sex work and not, if it's human trafficking, of course it is needed. But if it's sex work, of course it is needed. It's like, oh, this other woman in the love triangle, this woman who's been marginalized in society, that we have all kinds of stigma around, that we either think we are trying to save her, or think that she is a whore, or think that she is trying to necessarily control men. It's another stigma. And all of these stigmas can be true. Or she's necessarily oppressed, or she's necessarily choosing to be where she at. And all of those things, now we have to meet the actual people. Who are the actual people who did that or encountered that? And they're diverse, and they're at diverse stages in their lives. So that was another realization for me, that maybe it's another, like 8 years after dealing with this topic, I'm like, oh, the stigma that women who do sex work deal with is that they believe that anybody who supposedly tries to help them is only doing so because they don't want their husband cheating. And sometimes it is the husband of, or the partner of the woman, or the woman partner of the woman that is coming to pay for sex work. Okay? And this is big feminist and so on, but her husband, he's going to prostitute. And so the prostitute believes that, hey, everything is done, but nobody's giving me life, nobody's giving me money, income, money that I need. If I could get this money at another job, maybe I would do another job. But I don't get that. And all I get is that people cannot pay me, that now I cannot have income. And this is the perception. So here on this another phase, we kind of like, hey, would feminists are actually worried about his willing consent? So some were probably exploitative, but what feminists are actually worried is willing consent. And so it's kind of like the Inanna that tries to say, oh, wait, this woman is not liberated yet. This woman is oppressed. This woman is still not having willing consent in her life. Oh, I must take care of her. I must do. And I was like, fucking speak, right? Fucking speak to each other. Because what's actually being done is not in favor of the people that we seek to save, to help, to understand. And that was another aspect. Okay? It's kind of like, oh, you think that this is right, but there's so many things that you don't see on the way. And that's another part of the Ereshkigal story. And here Venus is trining Aries. So there's also transgender woman. What does a transgender woman want? What does a transgender woman feels like? And I've been seeing videos. I don't have it open right yet. I'm not gonna look on YouTube. But it's basically a woman who's black trans woman. And she said that she used to think, I think before the transition, she used to think that life is going to be hard for her, that life is hard for her in dating because she's trans woman. She realized that her difficulties with dating, once she switched off from, and her words, from black men, because they disrespected her being openly trans woman. And once she dated the type of men, or the men from the races or whatnot that were respecting her, basically, she realized that when she was speaking to cisgender women, the difficulties that they have dating is the same difficulties. And now when I think about this conversation about, the trans woman and the woman who is cisgender woman, kind of, meeting, catching up in these cycles, and kind of like, oh, we're having the same problems, babe. So it is about sisterhood and the challenges of sisterhood. Very much so. Okay? There can also be the situation where two women meet and they think, oh, we probably have the same problems. And they found out they don't have the same problems at all. I saw in the mental health community, there was a woman that was working in public relations. And she understood, and this is important for people to understand, when you hear, let's say, reduce the stigma around mental health. And so it usually is by marketing to you some sort of product, okay, some sort of pill, some sort of something. So the reducing of the stigma is not around the mental health issue, but around the taking a pill issue, and this is being marketed. So you're not actually reducing stigma around mental health. She said, I want to expose that, because she was trying to go for somewhere and they tried to hospitalize her to make her crazy. So she's a working woman, and she was like, I'm going to expose the entire lie of psychiatry. I'm going to expose it. This is a lie. This is only about money. I'm sick of it. Sick of people putting me down or cutting off my wings. And she was sure that she was like, oh, this is what people deal with. And actually, as I expected with this transit, we had a bit of a quarrel because I said to her, listen, you work from the morning until dawn and you go to swim, okay? But to you, a person who is not able and competent to work all these many hours because they're dealing with a certain trauma, or because they're having, it was actually around suicide because the moon, right now it's separated, but the moon was applying to Saturn. And after this full moon, and the moon applying to Saturn, I was just writing a post that said to people who are dealing with suicide ideation or whatnot, they will have a couple of days where the moon is applying to Saturn and then it is relieved. So please, whatever helps you and understand that this is temporary. She got pissed. It's like you're trying to fool it. Just talk about your experience. I'm like, wait, darling, you're working from morning until dawn. What about people who cannot work like this? What about people who are not fitting into society the way you are fitting in society? And they're having other problems. Yeah? There was no money changing hands. And of course, I'm not going to charge people who are now at the brink of death for it's like they're not my clients now. So this whole sisterhood thing where we are at the same, we are on par about certain views, but it's kind of like she was cast out from her working societies where she can actually work and succeed, where I was coming representing people who right now cannot do all this much, and maybe they don't desire to. Okay, maybe they have another path in life. So you understand that the sisterhood meeting can both be about, oh, we're having the same problem when we're dating men. It can also be about, wait a second, you want to do that so that you can continue to work and have your dream, which is lovely. But what about the people who can't work and need money? What about the people who can't work and need resources? Okay. What about the people who read this post and what they think is not, I'm convincing myself that I have a problem, but, oh, okay, now I know that this is this, and so maybe that can keep them alive because like, oh, it's in a couple of hours, now we'll have a relief and no money changes hands. So that is another story of the Ereshkigal, and as you can see, it's between women and themselves. And it's sometimes very difficult to identify who is it's not necessarily this person is Inanna and this person is the queen of the underworld. Okay? They're both queens, and with Venus in Leo, they are both queens. Okay? They are both leaders of their community. If it's in your 11th house, okay, maybe you're a leader of your community, or a leader in the neighborhood or whatnot. Or in your 7th house, okay, maybe it's a love triangle that now you're dealing with. It's like, oh, who is this other woman? I she this, I she that. It's like, oh, no, he initiated something, and there was a power imbalance. And I was like, I'd be dying to meet someone that just respects me. Like, I'm not like, you're like get your man away from here because he's constantly here. I'm trying to live my life. Trying to meet my needs with this, with that. Like, okay, fine. Like, I'm a human being, but it's like, I want to, happy, solid relationship just as much as you are. I'm not trying to have anything with your man. He's just here all the time. Okay? And that can be another kind of a conversation. And so it goes down to what do we perceive as feminine? What do we perceive as a woman? What do we perceive as a dignified woman? What do we believe is the challenge? Okay, because this aspect also denotes to when certain women can see other women as their challenge. Oh, you're walking with your, I don't know, your shirt like this or your boobs like that. Oh, you're disrespectful. Now my man is looking, and the other girl's like, darling, take your clothes off. It's freaking hot outside, darling. Okay? Or on the other way around. It's like you're sunburned as fuck. Can you like wear something for your skin so you won't get cancer? Okay? And that's the other, it's like it's summertime. Of course your skin is all red. Like why are you complaining about your skin all red? It's not about makeup. Wear a fucking sunscreen or put some clothes on so you won't be exposed to the sun all the time. And that kind of reminded me of the shot I saw of two Muslim couple, and they were talking about sunscreen. Literally, we had a lot of convos around sunscreen. Now it's summer. And they were saying, you know, we walk with these clothes, it's isolating the heat. And we don't have to put a sunscreen on because your sunscreen is going to give you cancer with what's in it anyway. And I'm like, okay, they got a point there. I don't see myself working, all with all these, clothes on. But we can take off the masks, take off the things that we have been projecting. And here, especially between women and each other. Okay? So we find renewed sense of connection in places where we didn't expect. And in the place where there was connection, we might find some things that we don't like. Okay? Maybe I have a very good friend, but then they're coming with this suddenly racist views, and I'm like, ooh, where did that come from? Okay? Or somebody's kind of like, oh, I want to work. It's like, oh, depression is not a problem. There is no such thing. Speaks with this. It's like, ooh, darling, you sane? I was just holding it from our people. Like, what the fuck? And that is, and it can also be about appearance. So the clothes that you wear, do you wear sunscreen? Do you not wear sunscreen? Or notion how your appearance is related to your values. Who do you find pretty? What do you find pretty? Okay, you can actually. It can even be so much as, one woman is considered so pretty, like a model, like this, like that. And then a woman who is considered, okay, like nice looking, they meet. And the woman who is considered so beautiful kind of thinks she like, I'm too skinny, I don't have a bum, I don't have a this. And that other woman's looking at her like, you look like a model. I thought your life is good. So that's more of like the fun and fluffy stuff. Or we can also run into the other kind of thing. Where, you are used to be seen as this beautiful, elegant, sexy, and now you get, you kind of going to the place where you take all the glory out and you meet this sister and it's kind of like, she seems like a regular girl to you, but she's adored. Another thing is when this happens in relationships, all these, all of these situations where you say, oh, she doesn't look like the hottest girl in town, but she got all the man, or she got her man kind of like really loving and adoring her. What does this woman have? Okay? And all of those encounters where that woman may have relationship skills that you don't have. And another song that I can think about is, wait. There's this song about like a woman being a bitch. It's funny. It's kind of like this woman is being mocked at for kind of like not being the symbol of beauty, or she's being fat, or she's having like a white vagina or whatnot. And then she sings about her sex life is kind of like, I might not look like the prettiest girl, but ooh, my sex life is good. Like it ain't easy for a bitch or something like that. So it's kind of like, I might not look like the hottest thing ever, but oh, my sex life is good. You might think I got, I'm a little extra, but oh, I'm not suffering. And it's those encounters too. One thing we had, oh my gosh, one surprising and kind of shocking thing we had with this applying to Uranus, with this applying to square Uranus, was where Lizzo's dancers exposed basically kind of like a human trafficking scandals. Beyond the sexual harassment, there was already human trafficking because it was working relations by Lizzo. And there was one of the things she's been accused of was also body shaming all the while she's, and I think it was even specifically fat shaming. There was like shocking and, And another thing that happened is kind of yellow that I heard was the Beyonce and Badu. So Beyonce was paying homage to Badu, but Badu called her out for copying her style or something, or maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. And then it was just colliding with the case of Lizzo. So Beyonce omitted Lizzo's name and just repeated the name Badu in her song when she was talking about the homages that she pays. That homages in, I think it was the Summer Renaissance, something like this. That homages is glorious because it used to have Balenciaga, and then the scandal with Balenciaga, and it had Lizzo, the scandal with Lizzo, and she was paying homage to Erykah Badu, and then Erykah Badu calls her out. It's kind of like this so very Uranus and Taurus kind of thingy. And now we have this returning to the scandals. That only makes it, more popular, applying to the yellow stuff. So people are going to watch this song again, probably to listen, what did she say? And now she gets more traffic, she gets more views. So that's also something that can happen, even not on purpose. Then you actually benefit from that. And of course, this Venus is applying to conjunct Lilith and to square Uranus. So we are absolutely not down with shocking scandals, and they're gonna be between women and themselves. And so, however much, if you are anyway near anything that relates to a woman, or even a feminine man or whatever, however much you think it's time to bring the popcorn, this one is taking everyone with it, because it's Venus is Ereshkigal. She's applying to Lilith. She's trining Aries. Okay? All the ladies. You brought the popcorn. That's good. But you're gonna get caught, you're gonna get caught on camera with the popcorn in your mouth being a part of the show. Because we're all a part of the show. I was thinking, I'm just observing this and that, and suddenly this, colleague that was working in PR kind of like, hey, why you write for suicidal people? Speak for yourself. And I'm like, okay, I've been caught up in the drama. So this is the transit. I guess the best thing we can do is to embrace the parts of us that between craves to needs to enjoys to indulges the drama, and understand that we will also be irritated by it too. Okay, and it's just like, okay, this is happening. And when we have astrology, then we know this is the spirit of nothing wrong. Okay, your friends are not just weird all over for nothing. Your bestie is not suddenly jealous of you for nothing, or whatnot. It's just like, this is the spirit of the times. It's weird, it's chaotic. We are bringing, you bring the popcorn, you end up being caught up in the show, especially with Aries being involved, simply because, and look at this with Mars on the midheaven. I'm probably about to say something. Simply because it is the spirit of the times. Like, this is the times where, chaos reigns, and you have to just embrace it. So, if maybe you ask, Mars here, maybe you ask, what about men? What about men? Oh, well, they're just caught up in the drama. Like, if this is a Madonna whore syndrome, it's kind of, you know, if a man is like evil or something, or tries to gaslight people or be narcissistic for whatever trauma he's been through, and it's kind of like, I'm going to confuse these women, I'm going to cause chaos, I'm going to this, I'm going to that, he's going to end up, you know, being caught up with the popcorn, and he's going to end up drawn into the chaos because he thinks, I will just observe and watch and this. It was like, 8 years ago, this was the priming to sugar-free lemonade. So had a person in academia that was trying to do this, but we ended up, you know, me making peace with that other woman and writing a satire about his intergenerational behavior and how the spirit of the cult and everything, like what happens in the army, what happens in academia and politics and so on. So like, he ended up being the point of the trend. His wife liked my posts. So if you are the man in this situation, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled that you can play these girls like something, because you're gonna get sucked in. Okay? The best thing to do is to understand that you cannot do anything. You gotta be a part of the chaos, because certain sides, certain facets are being exposed, and now these women that were, you know, marginalized, or that which has been seen as the lady, that which should, so you can control your projections. If you are a man, and now the moon is decreasing, so all those burning the passion, burning the desire rights that I don't even know how it's done, those are the things that you do now as the moon is decreasing. But also, if you are the man in this situation, anything you have ever projected on a woman, now it is exposed. And with Leo here, it's either performers, singers, showgirls, girls you have deemed dramatic. Okay, oh, she's so dramatic, and so on. She's going to expose the way you are being dramatic, and your, you know, your spouse is going to laugh with her. It's like, oh my God, she's so right. You know? Or people, if you've been having women that get along and kind of like in harmony, suddenly they're going to have like weird fights about whatever, and you're like, I don't know. Okay, so what you need to tend to is just like all these women need to tend to is, what do I deem as a woman? For example, black men has been exposed with this black trans woman. They said, you know what, I did a white man and I did Mexican Palestinian man. They respect me. Black guys that were the type, like the black guys that happened to be attracted to me, they always wanted to keep me as like a secret. And I'm like, no, I'm not your secret. If you're disrespecting me, I'm gonna go with who respects me. He happens to be white, okay, he has to be, you know, Palestinian, Mexican, whatever. Like, I just need a man to treat me right. And so kind of like, oh, black men were like, you know, the entire community of black men who are attracted to women were exposed. It's kind of like, oh, I didn't know black men like this. You know, me, a fairly bright complexion from Israel or Netherlands, is kind of like, oh, I didn't know black men like this. So that is another funny thing that is just going to happen to men. Like, it's like, oh, I didn't know he like this. No. So that is just the part, and some of it is really funny and humorous. And it's just kind of like, what are our ability to laugh at ourselves? And some of it is like, and sometimes the joke and the they come by. It's kind of like, yes, if you try to play a woman and you're not coming from a respectful place, if you're a man, and you're not coming from a respectful place, you're gonna laugh at your jokes. Like, maybe you said something funny, so they're like, you're just doing this to try to have one over me. No, I don't like that. It's like, no, like the joke was cute, but you're laughing on my account rather than with me. It's like, oh, it's the same problem we had 8 years ago, huh? No good, no good. This is why, you know, this is why. and that is, it's very visible. Like, you can't miss it. The dramas are very visible. you know, it really is the popcorn situation. You really are like, oh, I'm just watching a movie, and then somebody throws something at you. It's gonna, me? What? No, now. And with the Trine to Aries, it's discord. It's kind of like a Trojan war, but it's women instigating that with women. And it has to do with something that happened 8 years ago. Okay? What happened 8 years ago for you in your chart? This is how you're going to know what it is. So I got only 4 minutes, even though I could like, this is such a yellow energy that's kind of like, it sucks you in, right? So that's the episode for today. And that's the Ereshkigal wisdom, so Venus wisdom on a Venus day. I wish you to have more fun, jolly, light, and even enlightening, in the sense that you can get rid of, so we can all get rid of anything that has been holding us back from living life good as, you know, as women, or as men with women. So yeah, that's what it is about eventually. À ça, tout à l'heure.